Your
Mhm.
stage plot really shouldn't change too much or at all, really. I mean, you guys, so your stage plot is basically where everything is supposed to be positioned on the stage. And this is the document that's going to go to the production team. So they're going to make sure that your drummer is set up either on a riser or on the floor, wherever they're supposed to be. That your bass player is stage left and your lead guitarist is stage right.
Happy Thursday. Normally we do these on Tuesdays, but we had a few things come up and we had to push it back. But we made it. Rob is taking care of a few other things today, so it's just going to be Monique and I.
No
Um,
problem.
Yeah, no problem at all. So we're going to be continuing our last conversation that we had from last week, which was on live performance. I know we kind of went off on a tangent. We talked about a lot of good things and fun things like budgeting and marketing. So we're going to kind of pick up that conversation and discuss a few additional things. But before we kind of dive in, Mo, how's your week been? How was your weekend?
It was okay. Just recovering from a pretty bad sinus infection. I have really bad allergies and just, it got the best of me. So thank
Yeah,
God for antibiotics.
yeah,
So here we are, day, 4 in the week, and I'm actually feeling pretty good, even though it
good.
doesn't look like it, but I'm just recovering. So I'll be back to my glorious self next week.
Good. Good. Glad to hear you're feeling
How are
better.
you?
I'm doing well. It's been kind of a chaotic week. I've had some various appointments, so it's been kind of all over the place. But
Sure.
otherwise, it's been good. I'm excited to. I love doing these podcasts. I look forward to doing them every week. It's fun to pass around information and learn from one
Sure.
another and share the knowledge that we all have with everybody. So I'm really excited to pick up this conversation from last week.
Yes.
So we just kind of wrapped it up last week on talking. We talked about budgeting. We talked about various experiences, which kind of factors into your budget. We talked about marketing. So we want to pick up that conversation right here, and we're going to talk about stage plots, riders, and one sheets. So Monique, you mentioned that you wanted to start with, was it one sheets?
Yeah, I think just to kind of wrap up where we left off with marketing, I think the one sheet is an aspect of the marketing that's really important. And uh and I want to add something else to that as well. So with the one sheet, and hopefully we'll have some examples posted below for you guys to take a look at, but a one sheet should be your artist photo, the one that you're using for your marketing, the one that you approve for promoters to use if you're going to
Mhm.
be performing at a show. But your one sheet should have, if you're a band, it should be a really good band photo, or a series of photos that represent your brand of you as an artist or your band. And then below it, you should have a brief bio or what's the word I'm looking for? The hot information about your group, where you're from, where you guys have been performing. If you're new and you haven't been doing a whole lot, it should be a quick bio, and it should have your social media. Uh, what do you call it? Links.
Links.
Yeah,
Hmm.
your social media links. If you've been out for a while and you've been touring or you've been performing or opening up for people, you should have that information on there. Recently opened up for blah, blah, blah. If your social media numbers are really picking up, then you should still have your social media links, but then you could have like the Facebook logo and then how many followers you have, your Instagram logo, the Instagram logo, and then or icon, and how many followers you have. If your following is really looking good, and I want to stress, and I think we mentioned this before, you want these to be organic numbers. If you're buying followers, and I, as a promoter or a label or a manager, come look at your social media, and I can see that these are all junk followers, I'm already not impressed.
Hmm.
Okay. So you'll be lucky if you keep me around to listen to your music or watch your performance to see what you're really about. So make sure, as we said in our last week, make sure these are organic followers. Make sure these are organic fans and not fans that you've purchased. But your one sheet should be real simple. It shouldn't be cluttered. You want to make sure all your social media and your website is consistent. So if the name of your band is Vana Room, then your Facebook should be Vana Room. Your Instagram should be Vana Room. It shouldn't be a bunch of different names
Mhm.
for all these different social media accounts. Okay. And have an email address, have the booking information on there. So, people go, okay, this looks good. And the last thing I want to add that helps every artist and band is be able to tell your story. Having a good story really helps with the marketing. These guys are all children of veterans and they've traveled around the world because they were all army brats, or, this one made it through the foster care system. And I mean, not like you have to have a heartbreaking story for everything, but every artist has a story to tell. Figure out what your story is
Mhm.
and be able to include that as part of who you are and what makes you interesting.
Mhm. Going on just a slight sidebar, and really piggybacking off of the importance of a story is when you're reaching out to press and media, and as a
Hmm.
journalist, a lot of people and a lot of musicians and managers and booking agents and whomever will just send me a link to their Dropbox and a very short 2 to 3 sentence little bio on them. And
Right.
for me, if I have to write a 500-word story on you, that doesn't give me anything to go off of. I wanna know
Correct.
your life story. I wanna know where you're from, what inspires you, where did this music come from? Did you use any unique samples? Did you travel to a different country to get these samples? Did you record with somebody? Like, I want to know all of that. So that also portrays in when you're working with a promoter and getting yourself booked is they want to know these types of things that make you unique because they're really unique selling points and
Yeah.
marketing points for these people. So before we jump on, uh, what is the structure for a one sheet? Is there a particular structure that your one sheet should be in, or does it not matter?
For the most part, they're pretty basic. It's just photograph and info.
Mm,
Um, and if there's brand colors that are specific to you as an artist, so like McDonald's has their colors, right? So
mhm,
if there are colors that are very specific to your logo, then let your one sheet stick within the colors that you're using to brand yourself. Um, if you're rock and roll, then try to find a cool rock and roll font, but something that people can actually read. So you want
yes.
to give it a little bit of personality, but it doesn't have to be over the top. It really
Mhm,
doesn't, because people are just looking at it for that one piece of information. Are like, all right, enough to engage them and make them want to check you out.
yes, that's
So
exactly
yeah,
the
so
point of it.
that, I mean, it's pretty. I mean, it's almost like a resume. Like we all know what a resume should have on it, but everybody lays their resume out a little bit different. So
Mhm,
the formatting, I would just say keep the formatting easy to read, make it user friendly, just like you would a website or your resume.
mm,
And the information, like I said, is going to be the same. But if you're pretty girly, you might use like a pink background, and so like I said, make it fit your brand. So when I look at it, I can have some idea of the style of this artist, you know.
mhm.
If it's rock and roll, make it look rock and roll. If it's pop dance, make it look pop dance or feel pop dance.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good example, and, yeah, just reiterating the importance of having a story, catching that attention, being able to send it to a promoter, they skim through it, they take 30 seconds to read through it, and they're like, "Yeah, I wanna know more." And they go on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or wherever they go, or TikTok, and they see your stuff, and they're like, "Yeah, I think you'd be a good fit for this venue, for this show, or whatever they're working on."
Your
Mhm,
stage plot really shouldn't change too much or at all, really. I mean, you guys, so your stage plot is basically where everything is supposed to be positioned on the stage. And this is the document that's going to go to the production team. So they're going to make sure that your drummer is set up either on a riser or on the floor, wherever they're supposed to be. That your bass player is stage left and your lead guitarist is stage right, but that's going to be based off of your stage plot. So make sure your stage plot is clear. Make sure you have a page where you're listing any technical requirements that you have, um, that sort of thing. If you already have your set list ready to go, make sure you have that. And you don't have to send your set list in advance, but if there's any like lighting cues, it's not a bad idea to send the set list, because then whoever's doing the lighting, if it's not somebody that you're bringing, they have
Mhm.
time to check out your songs to figure out where certain things happen in the song to make the show more exciting visually with the lighting.
Mhm.
So if you have your set list, go ahead and send that as well. But that stage plot is really important, and any backline that you may need, I would include that as well. So if you don't know what backline is, you need to find out. If you're a band and you don't know what backline is, that's a must. So you need to learn all the terminology, because somebody on your if you're if you're an up and coming band, you don't have a tour manager. One of you guys has to be able to communicate this, and you may not have a manager right now. So we're trying to help you guys get organized and be the best band to work with, so people want to bring you back, or people recommend you and go, you know what, those guys were professional, they had their stuff together, they were organized, I highly recommend you work with this group or this artist or whatever, because even though they can't afford all of the other team members, they at least know what to have, and they had it in place. So to create your stage plot, if you don't have the finances to get somebody to create it in CAD, some kind of computer animation software, you can always just use like a Google Doc and use shapes, circles, triangles, squares, rectangles, and add in the text. And you can get somebody to help you with this, or YouTube University, honey, go look up a video and find out how to do it. So but definitely have a stage plot ready to go.
Mhm. Or if you wanna go old fashioned, get out a bold pen and paper and draw it out. Uh, that's easy too, and take a
Worst
picture
case
of it.
scenario.
Worst case scenario, just draw it out and make sure it's legible and everybody can read it and understand what's going on it.
Hmm.
That's really good. So you mentioned riders. What is a rider? And you mentioned there's technical rider, and then there's I don't remember what the other one is
The
called. It's
hospitality writer.
hospitality rider. So what
Hmm.
are those, and what's the difference between them?
So the rider is the document that, again, needs to be sent to whoever the promoter or the production team is, for the show. The technical writer goes along with your stage plot, and the technical writer is, any of the technical stuff that you need. Gear. So again, your backline stuff that you might need. Um, just really it's just all the gear,
Mm,
anything that you need for your performance. If you need to have an LED wall, if you need to have the banner needs to be hung, that kind of stuff, anything the crew needs to know in order to prepare the stage for your show needs to be on your tech writer, so they know what's supposed to be there and where it's supposed to go. Your
mm,
hospitality writer is for the green room. Your hospitality writer is, we need towels, we need 6 gallons of water, we need 8 cases of Bud Light, we need fresh fruit, we need gluten free. Please have gluten free for catering, or please have this in our green room. And, in my experience, I would ask that you do your best not to be a diva. I mean, ever, but out the gate as a new artist, I would not push the limits like that. Like, stick to what you guys really need. If you need some water, if you guys would like to have some libations for your performance, go ahead and put it on the hospitality writer. Just, you know, and let me also emphasize that anything you put on your rider must be legal. Okay, so you can't ask for drugs or anything like that, because it is still part of the contract that you're signing, or is being signed for your performance. So the rider is a part of the contract. All right.
Mm,
But your hospitality rider, yeah, is, we need a dressing room. If you have a female in your group and that female needs her own space, you may need to request another space, that sort of thing. And I would also recommend having a travel writer put
mm,
together in advance. Start thinking about what your travel looks like. So, how many people do you travel with? How many rooms you typically will need? And again, this is stuff that when you get booked, the faster you can get it to whoever's booking you, they love you, because now that gives them time to, in advance to let the hotel know, or, you know, how many rental cars they need to get to pick you up at the airport. Do we need a passenger van, or can we pick them up in just a limo?
mm,
So a travel writer is a good thing to start getting, and that's also good for your team as well. If you're traveling overseas, make sure everybody has their passport, whatever shots they need to have um, to go into another country. So make sure you do your due diligence, and you may be all excited. Oh, awesome! We got booked for China or wherever, and but are y'all ready to travel? Like time zone changes, all that kind of stuff. Make sure
mhm.
people have their medications. Make sure you're allowed to bring those medications into another country. Things we just take for granted for basic travel in the United States. You got to consider all that as part of your writer and your book. Your travel book that you put together for your team. So,
Yeah, you brought up a really good point. I actually spoke with somebody who had traveled to China to tour, and they had to bring like various toiletries, like toilet paper, feminine products. They're very difficult to find over there. So doing your research and finding out what types of products
mhm.
and things that you'll actually need to pack, because depending on where you are, you may think, oh, going to get a roll of toilet paper is simple, but in another country, you may have to drive an hour to get it, and it may not be as
Yep,
common because the cultural differences. So
exactly.
research every country that you're going to. Mo made a
Hmm.
good point on which vaccinations you may need, what medications you'll need to bring if they're legal. A lot of places you can go to like Costco or CVS and say, I'm going to be traveling to this country. They can pull it up and they'll tell you exactly what vaccinations you would need or anything like that, what restrictions they may have. So it's really, really important that you do your research, because you can't just show up at the airport with your passport. If you don't have your proper vaccinations or the proper medications and whatnot, they might not even let you get on the plane.
Or the
Uh,
proper visa. Sometimes
or
it's
the
not just
exactly.
a passport that you need. You may need a visa. And the other thing, I hate to bring this up, but it's the reality of our lives is, um, you need to know any criminal history background of the people traveling with you, because some some countries are really strict. If somebody's been arrested within the last 30 days, or if they've ever been convicted of a particular type of crime, they may not be allowed into a particular. They may be able to fly all over the United States, but they may not be able to fly into another country.
Mhm.
So I'm telling you, and you need to have everybody sign a document that they are fully aware of the potential consequences of violating any law in another country. There's no guarantee you're gonna make it back home. Let's just put it that
Mhm.
way.
Yeah.
And at the moment we're still kind of teetering on some of these issues with COVID. Some places still, I'm hoping by the time that we show this on, on our channel, that it's kind of dissipated somewhat, but there's still some places doing quarantine restrictions, which can be difficult, because if you work a full-time job and your band is trying to travel somewhere, you're going to be gone for a while,
Mhm.
and hopefully you don't, catch COVID or whatever may make you sick in another country, and then you can't come back on time. So,
Yep.
and to something you said, Lennon, about the cultural differences, that's a big one. Make sure you research the cultural differences. Something as simple as shaking with the wrong hand, you know,
Yes.
or showing the bottoms of your feet, or not making eye contact, or, women not covering our hair, or some places are, it's just a very different cultural experience, and you need to at least educate yourself. So if it's a long flight over there, I recommend doing some reading.
Mhm.
Pick up a book, get on the internet, print some stuff out that you can read on the plane, and make yourself aware. Willful ignorance is not, I've said it before, it's not something you can afford.
Going back to the riders, uh, how technical and how detailed should and do they need to be? Like, do you need to write down like, oh, we need to have this much tape for this cable? Do we need to have this many cables, or do you just put like a general? Uh,
No, I mean, no, you don't have to worry about how much gaff tape is going to be needed or anything like that, but you want to be able to give the crew enough info that they know exactly what they need. So when you set up, you know what's there. You
mm,
know, that what you need to play is there. So, tell them how many microphones you need. Tell them, you know, how many guitar stands you need, that kind of stuff. Things that are pertinent to your performance. But you don't have to worry about gaff tape or, um, oh, if you need in ears, if you're using in ears for your performance, you need to let them know
yes.
that you're using in ears, and the brand that you're using, so they can make sure either they have the same brand or something compatible, as far as being able to run the system. Uh, Props, if so, if you can't afford to ship props, then you better be able to afford to have somebody build those props in another country for you. So what props do you have to have? So props should be on there as well, and they should also have a position on your stage plot, so
Hmm.
whoever is setting up your stuff knows exactly where it needs to go. Again, we're not talking to people who are in major label bands. We're talking to you guys who are independent and you're going to have to do a lot of this stuff on your own, or you may have an opportunity to play in a festival. You want to appear as professional as possible. Festivals have crews that are going to be setting things up for you, so make sure you give them what they need. And
Hmm.
if something's missing, and you didn't tell them, that's your fault. If it's not on your rider and it's something you need for your performance, if you're going to have pyro, if pyro is part of your
Mm,
act, you better make sure they know that that needs to be on your rider. There was a horrible incident. I forgot what year it was. It was forever ago, but in a small nightclub in Rhode Island, a band played and they had pyro. Allegedly, no one at the club knew, yet you can see in the picture that pyro was set up on the stage, and the pyro went off and caught fire in the ceiling, and the whole place caught on fire, and 100 people were killed. And it was a horrible tragedy. And the club was like, well, nobody told us there was pyro, and the band's like, well, we did tell you guys we were going to have pyro. It shouldn't have been a matter of what we said. It should have been a matter, was it in the contract and the writer when we booked this gig? At
mhm.
that point, it is 100% on the club for not preparing or not saying, hey, you guys can't have pyro in here. And sadly, in that particular situation, not only was the club responsible, but so was the band's manager.
Mm,
That's a horrible, horrible stain on your legacy. And let's not even get started about the liability,
yeah,
the insurance you guys got to carry too,
yeah,
um, all from the business side of things.
yeah.
So
Be
if you have pyro or anything like that, make sure that is also on your tech writer.
Which also goes, and I believe we talked about this in the last episode, is for things like that, you've got to have insurance, which is another good thing. There's certain companies that will specifically insure musicians and their equipment and things like that.
Mhm.
But always, always check with your insurance agent to see what it would take
And I don't
to
know the
cover these
specifics,
types of
but you
things.
might also need somebody who's licensed to set up and set off pyro. I don't know all the details in that. We'd have to talk to somebody on the live um, production side, but I'm almost certain there's some sort of license or
Yeah.
certification or something attached to that.
Yeah, you have to. I believe you have to be a licensed pyrotechnician, and then that varies state by state because some states don't have it legalized and some
Yeah.
do, and
Mm. So
that's a
use
whole
cold
nother.
sparks. I mean,
Yeah,
if y'all know how to
yeah,
improvise, like don't be mad. Your show can still look good with cold spark. Cold
uh huh.
spark don't set nothing on fire. You can literally stick your hand in a piece of paper in it. So if you can't have pyro, cold spark.
Cold sparks. Yeah, that's a new thing. That's cool.
And it looks
But
great.
it does. I've seen a few of them. They look really cool. And then CO2
Mhm.
cannons are always fun. I don't know if
There
that
you go.
falls
Yep.
under pyro, but those are always cool if they're done right, especially with the cold sparks. That would be really
Yep.
cool.
Hmm. So again, if you are a artist and you're looking at traveling, or doing a show or trying to get booked on festivals and that sort of thing, and you have questions, if we didn't answer your question in the last two podcasts, send us a message, email us, and we will definitely get on that for you and answer whatever questions you guys may have.
Yeah. And I'm curious, if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment below on what are some things that you include on your writer, some things that you've forgotten that would be good to add for other
Yeah.
musicians. I'm always curious to see what people add on their writers and sometimes things you never even think of. It's like, oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that would be good to have. I'll include that. So
Mm-hmm.
leave that in the comments if you're watching on YouTube. That would be really helpful.
Lennon, if you had a writer, a hospitality writer, what's going to be on your hospitality writer for your green
Oh,
room?
that's a good question. I would definitely have probably chocolate milk because that's my favorite drink.
Oh my god. I love
I
it.
would I would have, gosh, what would I have? I would have Thai food, a
Ooh.
thing of Thai food for dinner or lunch. And for like a snack, what would I have for a snack?
Look at you. You're all about the food. You're like, I
I'm all
need to
about
make
the
sure.
food. I'm all about the food. And then some, maybe some local food from a mom and pop shop around the area. Like what's
Oh,
like the
that's
best
cute.
restaurant that they think of, like to support a
I
local
like
business.
that. I love that. What a
Yeah.
great idea. What a
What
great
would be on yours?
idea. I would definitely have to have a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand. It has to
Oh
be a
my
New
gosh.
Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, because I love my white wine. I would definitely need I need a fan or AC. So I need the room to be cool because I do
Mm,
not like being sweaty and hot.
me neither.
It needs to have a place where I can shower or freshen up. It needs to be clean because
Yes.
it can't be stinky.
Yeah.
And then for food, I would probably just want a really nice garden salad
Mm.
or maybe a grilled chicken salad
Ooh.
with no cheese, no olives, just lettuce, eggs, hard boiled eggs, green peppers, cucumbers, some grilled chicken, some um, croutons,
Oh, yes.
and a balsamic vinaigrette, and lots of alkaline water. I need like 2 gallons of alkaline water
Why alkaline water?
because it's really good for you.
Ah,
It's clean. And it has what do you call it in it? Well, the alkaline, but it's better for you than just regular water because it helps you get with some energy. But
oh,
it's so clean. Yeah, I love my alkaline. I make my coffee with alkaline water. Yeah, I don't
interesting.
use tap water.
I
I'm gonna
thought
be
the
bougie right now. Everybody's like, "Oh, she's so bougie."
as
Yeah,
as you talked about not being a diva, but
I know,
that's
right? But
and here you
alkaline
are.
water, it's only like $1 a gallon, so it's
Yeah,
not that
yeah,
expensive. Like
yeah.
nothing I said was expensive. Not even my wine. That wine is probably like 14 $15. You got people asking for like 10 bottles of Ciroc Moet and
Yeah.
uh only green M&Ms, and I must have Crest toothpaste. And I mean there's some wicked writer. We should find some of the crazy writers and put them on here so people can, or a link. I mean, my goodness, some of these people, I'm like, y'all are just like Jennifer Lopez. One of hers was like her green room had to be all white. So they had to do like all sheer curtains and she wanted white candles. And come on, I don't need all that. I just needed to be clean and have some place for me to sit and chill out. And it can't be hot in there. I
No.
don't want to sweat because if I'm about to go perform, I'm very big on self hygiene. Like
Yeah.
I cannot,
Same.
I just can't if I'm already sweaty and hot. So yeah, that's my hospitality right there.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think we should find some for next week's episodes. We can go over some crazy riders just
Yeah.
briefly at the beginning. But I mean, J Lo, she is a literal diva, so I think she could ask for that. But
I'm
uh,
not going to say the name, but I did have to work with a particular diva. But I wasn't in charge of her green room. I was just the
uh,
stage manager, and I just had to get her on stage, and she was a nightmare. I'm not going to say who it was, but at the end, we ended up like we gave each other the nod, like, okay, we're good, kind of.
yeah,
Because we had words, we exchanged some words, but it was my job to get her on stage, or that union clock was ticking. For those who know
uh-huh,
live production, that union clock was ticking, and I had a headset on, and my boss was yelling at me, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna lose my
yep,
job.
yep. You don't mess with those unions.
Yeah, you
That union
don't.
clock is
Yeah. Oh,
ticking.
that's another thing. I'll throw that in there really quick before we go. Get on stage on time, people. Don't pull this. I'm gonna make the crowd wait business. Don't do that. If your time is 10:30, y'all better be hitting your first note at 10:30. Do
Uh-huh.
yourself a favor.
Yeah.
Don't show up early. Rules of production. Early is on time. On time
On
is
time is
late.
late.
Late is unacceptable.
Yep.
Remember
Late.
that.
Late is unacceptable. I say that all the time. Is early is on time is late.
I'm early
Yeah,
for everything.
yep, me too. I'm like 20 minutes early. Like,
Oh yeah, doctor's appointments, class, whatever. If you say we're going out and you're like, come on, let's go out at 10 o'clock. I'm already in your driveway
yeah,
at 9:30, 9:45. Like, and I'm mad at you because to me, now I'm waiting on you. Like,
yeah,
let's go.
yeah. We said we were
10
going out
o'clock
at
means,
10.
right, 10 o'clock means the car has to be rolling at 10.
Uh-huh. Exactly. Yep. That's exactly how I am. Well, this has been great. This was another fun episode. Not as much information as last week, but we just wanted to wrap it up
Yeah.
and cover this live performance aspect. And I would love to bring on a promoter to the podcast, or a few of them, because every promoter works very differently and has
Mm-hmm.
different
Mm-hmm.
rules for their venue and the shows that they put on. So
Mm-hmm.
we definitely plan on having some really exciting promoters on, because they
And some
have kind of,
production folks who can talk
yes,
about their experience with the tech writers and all of that. So we're going to get some of those people on too, so you guys know how not to tick off the tech people.
yeah, and
Your
not
front
burn
of
down
house
the venue.
engineer, right?
Yeah, and not burn down the venue. Um, cool. So, well, this has been great. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. If you have any questions, you can head to the Jamvana website, jamvana.com. You can find us on socials, Jamvana on Instagram, Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment, like, comment, subscribe. Uh, Follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and wherever you listen to podcasts. So, thanks again, and we'll see you next week on the Vana Room.
Bye.